The Queen of Hearts tapped Alice on the left shoulder. What do you know about royalty? She asked. I know a little bit about the kings and queens who ruled my country over the centuries, replied Alice. In fact, I'm rather good at English history. Will you tell me about one of them? Asked Her Royal Majesty. Before you go, please. She doesn't normally ask so politely. After all, she is a queen. So Alice agreed. It is rather late, but I suppose that this is the land down under, so I should think life is bound to be upside down from time to time. Very well, Your Majesty. Alice and the Queen sat down at the wooden table on the garden lawn. This story is called The 6 Wives of Henry VIII, explained the teenage girl. Was he a bigamist? Asked the Queen of Hearts. Not quite. What suit was his kingdom? Spades, diamonds, hearts, or clubs? Asked the monarch. Stop asking questions and listen, insisted Alice. Impertinent little girl, huffed the Queen. This is the poem that Alice read to the Queen of Hearts. Two ticks. The 6 Wives of Henry VIII. Catherine of Aragon was young King Henry's first wife. The Queen was a paragon of Catholic life. The mother of Mary, alas, died in strife. The King, he divorced her. She bore no living son. Henry turned his back on Rome, and a new church he began. The King then married Anne Boleyn. Princess Elizabeth was born. She spent her last days in the Tower. She faced King Henry's scorn. Accused of having love affairs, Queen Anne soon lost her head. Down came the sword upon her neck. Then Anne Boleyn was dead. The King fell in love with Jane Seymour, and he married his little nun. But she died soon after childbirth, to Edward, King Henry's only son. The King he then wed Anne of Cleves, a marriage of convenience, a German lady of noble blood, but she had common sense. They disliked each other at first sight. Anne begged Henry to set her free, and in due course the two divorced. They could find no harmony. Catherine Howard, a pretty young girl, soon caught the old King's eye. But she had an affair with a handsome young man, and the King said his young wife must die. She was sent to the Tower, her lover now dead. Down came the axe, and the Queen lost her head. The King was now old, but he took a 6th wife. Catherine Parr was her name. She lived a humble life. Twice already a widow, the King died in bed. She married once again, but never lost her head. The Queen of Hearts was now asleep with her head in her hands, snoring loudly. I think the 2 of you would make a perfect match, giggled Alice. She yawned and very soon fell asleep at the table, for it is often very warm at night in down under land, and just a little too easy to get tired. It must have been quite early in the morning when Alice woke up. All the other guests at the party had either gone home or were still sound asleep, slumped over a table or slumbering on the garden lawn. I think I shall take a walk around the palace garden now, thought Alice to herself. Do you mind if I walk with you? Asked a young, chubby, bald-headed man standing next to Alice. He was a very strange fellow indeed, wearing his trousers around his ankles, and a pair of yellow-stained white Y-front underpants on top of his bald head. What's your name? Asked the village idiot. For it was plain to see that he was clearly very stupid. My name is Alice, replied the teenage schoolgirl. Spotty Dick, the village idiot introduced himself. I can see that, frowned Alice, staring down at his groin. Actually, I think I would feel safer walking alone, she told him. The village idiot sat down at the table. Dramatic pause. Have you ever been swimming in the pages of a book? Let your mind unwind and take a look, grinned the Cheshire Cat, sitting on a branch of the black apple tree in the King's orchard, overlooking the wooden table where the idiot was asleep. Oh no, sighed Alice, turning to face the Cheshire Cat. Not you again. I like your new spectacles, sighed the cat. The blue frames go nicely with your pink hair. The Cheshire Cat laughed and disappeared again. Alice picks up the tin of biscuits that she had won at the cricket match and strolls down the garden path, stopping every once in a while to smell the beautiful black roses as she walked past them. A Jack of Spades had planted them in the shrubbery the day before. Such sweet a smell, sighed the schoolgirl, like dark chocolate melting over a hot chocolate sponge cake. Fresh and still steaming, straight from my mother's oven. Alice was beginning to feel rather hungry. She was coming to the end of the garden now, unless you go back the other way. But the garden was indeed round, and she could end up walking in circles forever if she is not careful. And because the garden is round, I suppose that there really isn't any end, thought Alice to herself, which she does quite a lot. There is always an end, laughed a plump, hearty voice coming from a rather strange-looking tree. It's the eucalyptus tree, explains a very tired, grey-furred koala bear, his 4 paws clutching the branch ever so tightly. I've been eating her leaves all morning, yawned the small, cute, furry bear thing. She never stops hugging me. The koala fell asleep. It's all about unthinking all the things you think you know. If you believe everything you are told, then your brain will never grow. Please don't be fooled by religion. God knows it's a waste of time. Think for yourself, look, listen, learn. I think this life is mine. Now turn all the words upside down. If you think you know it all, just ignore this lonely clown if you have no time for a fool. The end is where the world begins. The mad old hatter said, the human brain can dream of many things, but it's of no use when I am dead. So I'll drink another beer or two and smoke a cigarette. And if I should die of cancer, I will remember what I forget. Death is not the end, my dear, so rest in peace, my tired friend. There really is nothing to fear. How can birth be the end? Sang the Hatter. Chapter 4. The Mad Hatter's Tree Party. The Mad Hatter's Tree Party. Oh dear. Hello, Mr. Hatter, frowned Alice. I had a feeling that you might be around here somewhere. The Mad Hatter sat on a branch of the eucalyptus tree beside the koala bear, who was snoring ever so softly. Are you having another tea party? Asked Alice, gazing at the variety of teapots balanced on the branch below the Mad Hatter's feet. There were red teapots and yellow, orange, green and blue, purple teapots, striped teapots and spotted ones too. There's so many varieties to choose from, frowned the Hatter, taking off his very large purple and green striped top hat and scratching his crazy spiky orange hair. He was wearing a green and purple patchwork frock coat and an orange and blue polka dot bow tie. He put his hat back on his head. Hello again, pretty lady, the March Hare called to the little girl below, for the March Hare was sitting on a branch of the tree above the Mad Hatter, and the ground below was quite a long way down. So although Alice was still her normal size, she would always appear to be much smaller if you were sitting some distance away, high up in the branches of a eucalyptus tree. Oh no, not you as well, shouted Alice. The March Hare grinned a buck-toothed smile. I'm going to get bifocals too. The April Fool was asleep, lying along the length of the branch, with his head resting on the March Hare's soft, furry belly. He was wearing a red and green checkered leotard and three-horned hat with those funny twinkly brass bells on the tips. Alice climbed the strange-looking tree and sat down on a branch opposite the Mad Hatter. "So I was right," smiled the schoolgirl. "You are having a tea party." You are having a tea party. "It is not a tea party," the Hatter explained. "It is a tree party. Or a tea tree party. Or a tree tea party. I'm really not quite sure." The Hatter handed Alice a cup and saucer. He was sitting on the other side of the tree trunk and had to lean over quite a bit. Alice looked inside the yellow cup. "Oh, but there's nothing in it." "That is because it is empty," explained the Mad Hatter. Alice handed the cup and saucer back to her host. The Mad Hatter picked up a teapot from the branch below him and poured another cup of tea. Alice stared at the upside-down blue china cup with a saucer on top, which is in fact still the bottom of the cup, if the cup is the wrong way around, I suppose. Oh, dear. "This tea is a local brew," grinned the Hatter. "It's a bit like decaffeinated." Alice held the teacup upside down above her head. The tea was still floating in the bottom of the cup, which in this case might actually be the top. Anyway, the tea was floating upside down in the cup. This one is called Defy Gravity. "How can I drink it?" asked Alice. "If the cup is upside down." The March Hare laughed. "It's very simple, my dear child." "I'm 16 years old," huffed the schoolgirl. Mr. Hare nudged his boyfriend, and the April Fool sat up. He was clutching a string of 40 or 50 various multicoloured balloons in his right hand, and had to grip tightly to the branch so that he would not float away. Hare wrapped his legs around the branch ever so tightly. He leant back until he was hanging, his floppy long ears dangling down, and his head under the branch. He took the blue cup of Defy Gravity and drank it upside down. "Simple," he laughed. "What other teas do you have?" asked Alice. The Mad Hatter coughed, clearing his throat. He hands a green cup to Alice. "It looks a bit weak." She took a sip of the tea. "And it tastes like water," she complained. "It is water," giggled the Hatter. "I call it purity." The Hatter continued talking. "To soothe your nerves and calm you down, try a cup of chamomile. Alas, there is no caffeine in it, so it won't make you smile." The March Hare handed an apple turnover to Alice. "If you like your tea quite rich, then try some royal tea. But if you can only afford a cheap blend, then you could always buy poverty," he suggested. The Hatter took off his hat, scratched his head, and then put it back on again. "There is a novelty brew for reading a book. Peppermint tea is very refreshing if you suffer from bad breath. Beauty to make you pretty. Penal tea for bad footballers. Loyalty to share with your close friends. And if you are impotent, then try a cup of sexuality. Comes in several flavours: homo, hetero, trans and bi. Bloodthirsty for vampires. Fatality to poison someone. And there is even a brew that lasts forever, a bottomless cup called eternity." "Are you still a milliner?" asked the pretty pink-haired girl. "No," replied the Hatter, "I am a poor man." The March Hare puts his right arm around the April Fool's shoulders and kisses him on the cheek. The March Hare, April Fool, May Queen and the June Bride. The March Hare asked the April Fool, will you be my May Queen? Let's get married in June. You can be my bride if you like that kind of thing. The April Fool said to the Hare, you are sounding kind of gay. The March Hare replied, what use are balls if you have no games to play? Oh, yes, indeed, the Hare declared, you are quite right, my dear. So let me get straight to the point. I've always felt a little queer. There is nothing wrong with being gay, the April Fool agreed. So let's go rolling in the hay. You can come and drink my seed. The March Hare pricked up his long ears and grinned a buck-toothed smile. Said the April Fool, cry no more tears. We are coming out in style. The Fool tied his string of multicoloured balloons around the branch of the tree where he was sitting and watched as they floated up above his head in the warm morning breeze. Alice took a sip of tea from a purple cup. Oh, this is lovely, a very fine blend indeed. I call that one quality, grinned the Mad Hatter on the other side of the tree. He climbed carefully around the trunk. Budge up, he suggested. Alice shuffled along the branch and the Hatter sat down beside the teenage schoolgirl. He handed Alice a slice of sponge cake on a pink plate. This is a funny-looking cake, she laughed. It's covered in sticky jam, and the icing is on the bottom, she frowned. It's an upside-down cake, explained the Hatter. I'm not quite sure what an upside-down cake really is, to be honest. Alice handed the empty plate back to her host. So how did you three get here? We sailed across the calm and peaceful, clear, golden ocean with the Queen of Hearts, her entourage and the Tweedles in her royal yacht, explained the Mad Hatter. Although, to be honest, the ship is more like a cruise liner than a yacht. What ocean is that? Asked Alice. The Sea of Tranquility, of course, smiled the funny-looking man with a big purple and green striped top hat. What is the purpose of a porpoise? Asked the dolphins in the sea. To an 8-armed octopus. Her name is Colour Marie, laughed the March Hare. It was a very rough voyage. We nearly capsized several times, explained the Hatter. I thought you said the ocean was calm and peaceful. Alice was very confused. There were almost no waves at all, agreed the ginger-haired man in the purple and green top hat. But when Tweedledum or Tweedledee took a stroll around the deck, the ship would rock from side to side, and we all got soaking wet. We was most shrunk when the Tweedles found the bouncy castle and the poop deck, he laughed. No sooner had the words left his mouth when who should come walking across the garden lawn but the terrible twins themselves.